Ahoy hoy all, Truss here, and welcome back to another Conquest Reforged video. Today in this video I'm going to be discussing some techniques on how to improve your walls, as walls are such a core part of any exterior Minecraft build, and this video shall be building upon some of the techniques I discussed in my last video, which is how Conquest Reforged modpack can really enhance a vanilla Minecraft build and take a Minecraft build to a next level. Now, the first technique I'm going to discuss can actually be used in principle in vanilla Minecraft, and that is transitions or gradients. And that, quite simply, is you pick 3 or 4 different blocks, typically never more than that, because you don't want to make a build look too messy, so keep it simple. So I've chosen 3 blocks which are on the left hand side of the barrier here, you can see them, and you take them and you gradually build up through your wall, phasing one out in favor of the other. And if it's done quite subtly, it can look really great. And this can be seen in some cases in real life too. I've an example here that I took from my local town. And as you can see, in that old wall there are several blocks of various types just all thrown together, and it looks fairly old and authentic, and you're trying to simulate that within your Minecraft experience. Here's a further wall detail effect, and can be used for typically taller walls or thicker walls, and that is a simple buttress. Now, within vanilla Minecraft you would be forced to use full blocks and perhaps stair blocks, but within Conquest Reforged you can use vertical slabs, or more particularly in Conquest Reforged 1.15 and above, you can use vertical slab layers to create a beautifully layered wall buttress that gradually gets thinner as you move up the wall, and looks quite well in my opinion, and again is realistic because it's a buttress and is aesthetically pleasing within Minecraft, as it adds depth of character to the wall. So rather than using a plain one block wall, try to use gradients. They really do look well. Now on to my second example. Again, in this example I've used, my palette is on the left hand side of the wall, as you can see, and the actual practical use of it is on the right hand side. So in this example I've used some of the plaster stones that are available in Conquest Reforged, and these are also available within the Conquest Vanilla resource pack, both for Bedrock and for Java, and they form the base of my wall. And as you move up the wall, they gradually give way to some limestone blocks. Now these limestone blocks in 1.15 and above are, I believe, named diorite blocks within 1.12, and there's some lovely worn blocks there that give an aged look to the wall, and they gradually subtly give way to smaller limestone blocks. Now at the top of the wall I've capped it with a thicker, fuller limestone block. Now I've used this as an example because if you're doing a build where you want to bring colour or a different sort of block, you can use this technique as a border, and perhaps you want to use a more extreme palette, so you want to completely change your block to a brick, for example, I've used here, or perhaps you want to use it to bring your build out and have wood above it, for example. You can use that. So here I've used a beam block which supports just a wooden hoarding wall, and again that one final layer of limestone blocks creates a border that allows a nice transition between the one and the other. And now again, this I feel just demonstrates why transitioning is such a vital technique for more advanced builds. And here we have my third example using sandstone blocks, and again you can see the palette on the left hand side of the barrier and the practical example on the right hand side. Now in this wall I've created some further detailing. I've got some bordered blockwork which juts out from the wall. It gives the wall some depth and also suggests that there is some heavier stonework that supports the wall as it goes up. I've also used a small little arch block at the base, which is to indicate a drain, and a little bit of moss vine to again indicate dampness. I've used some of the sideways stairs blocks, corner blocks, to create some gaps in the wall, and also use just some stair blocks with the debug stick to create again just some gaps where perhaps bricks have fallen out or the wall has crumbled away a bit. I've also used a technique whereby within Conquest Reforged you can use some of the rock blocks, and there are various types and colours available, and if you place them carefully, often it won't work, but if you place them carefully, some states they can be quite small and look like there are blocks that are crumbling away from the wall or are jutting out from the wall, and again it gives a rather aged feel to the wall and just adds some character, adds some depth. Halfway up the wall I've put in a quarter block. Now that just breaks up the wall a little bit. For particularly high walls you might want to use this technique to draw your eye away from the overall flatness, and it gives again a little bit of character and a little bit of depth. And finally I've just added a little bit of a vine block. It typically wouldn't be swirling about and would look better without shaders, but unfortunately I'm using shaders for this video, so it looks a little incongruous, but within a normal build it will look absolutely fine. In fact, it will look quite well and just again give some indication that nature has taken foot on the build and add a little bit more character. Again, just you can see the effect of the transitioning as you move up the wall. Even for quite a small wall, it really does look well and just lends a lot to the build itself. Okay, for my fourth example I'm going to show you a palette that doesn't have quite as much use in the wall as my previous examples, because the wall is divided halfway up with a plaster top half. But again, you can see the palette I've used on the left hand side, and on the base of the wall you can see it in practice. Again, I've used some vertical slabs to bring the wall out a little bit, add a little bit of character, and in this example I've used a window that has been filled in with a different sort of block. So perhaps the window fell out of use, and when they filled it in they didn't have the block available that was originally used in the wall and used a completely different sort of block. And this can be seen certainly in Ireland where I live in many different older buildings, and it would not be uncommon at all to see. To add a little bit of realism to that one window and indicate that it was in fact a window, I've added a sill and a little facade above it, and again it just adds a little, it tells a story that allows and some character to your build. Above that I've divided the wall, as I mentioned, into two halves. So I have a stone base with blockwork, and at the top I've used plaster. In between, to divide it, I've used a different block altogether, a reticulated brick, above which I have used a rail block. And then as you move up the wall I've used some worn white plaster that's topped with some decorative plaster. Again, this all just brings character to your wall and just allows more interest into your build. Above the plaster I've used some post beam blocks. They are again only available in Conquest Reforged 1.15 and above, and that again just allows some depth of character to the wall, and it gives some indication that the wall is being supported. This technique can be used fairly effectively in medieval builds or medieval walls, and just to differentiate from the Tudor blocks that are available. Perhaps you don't want to use them for whatever reason, but now the beam posts can be used and they look rather well. Finally, this particular wall is just bringing together some of the techniques from this video and my previous one, so it combines the two. It's a rather higher wall than I would typically build, but that was only to showcase the transitioning of the blocks and some of the techniques that I've discussed in both videos. So at the base of the wall there's a small archway just to indicate a drain, again some of the same moss just to indicate the dampness. The transitioning, as you can see, is there, transitions between 3 blocks. It has some brickwork coming out, again just to show support, and some 3D. I have used some of the column blocks to give the windows sills, and quarter vertical blocks just to pull the window out from the wall a little bit. Halfway up the wall I've used some of the rocks jutting out again as some brickwork that's come loose, and a quarter block running across the wall just again gives the wall some character. Slightly above that I'm after putting some facade blocks just as a decorative feature. And then finally we get to the jettying, which I discussed in the last video. To support the jettying I've used cornice blocks and some beams, horizontal beams, and then for the second level of the building over the jettying I've used some decorative wooden blocks, a decorative rail, and then some plaster and Roman brick. And on the second floor the windows have shutters, Conquest Reforged shutters, and just some Roman brick quarter slabs as a sill. Finally, for the roof I've used some corbel blocks, some beams again, horizontal beams, some roof beams, and a lintel block just across the roof just to give it a trim as such. So now you can see that rather than have a fairly plain build, that in Conquest Reforged you can have a fairly realistic looking build that looks fairly well and has a lot of character. I neglected to mention as well that I added a small bit of organics to this one just to give a little bit of decoration. And I think this has a rather Mediterranean feel to it, but it may remind other people of other buildings they have seen before. But so as you can see, this combines some of the techniques I've discussed, and I personally think that these allow your Minecraft building to be brought up a notch. It adds interest, it adds character, and while some of it can be used within vanilla Minecraft, the techniques, unfortunately some need Conquest Reforged, which is why I would encourage everybody, if they have Java, to download the mod pack. It's really, really wonderful, and give it a try. See if you can experiment with it, see what you can come up with yourself. The possibilities are endless. There are several servers that you can join where people will teach you. My own that I play on is Darwin Reforged. You are always welcome on it, and our community I'm sure will be very welcoming should you decide to give it a try. So hopefully that was some use to you, and that's about all I have to show you for this video. So until next time, stay frosty and goodbye.